Hey everybody, it's Scott Shetler and welcome to this week's episode of Strength and Health TV. This week I want to switch gears a little bit and I want to talk about an experience I recently had with my first time using a sensory deprivation tank or a float tank. This is something that kind of goes hand in hand with my personal meditation practices, so we're going to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff and get away from the training that we've been talking about for the last couple of episodes. So hopefully you'll find some interest in this, and if you haven't tried it yet, this will encourage you to look for a sensory deprivation tank or a float tank near you to give it a shot, because I really think there's a lot of benefit to it. So basically what a sensory deprivation tank is, or sometimes called a float tank, it's a small chamber that looks really like a tile tub, a large tile tub or something, and it's maybe got, 1.5 feet deep of water. I don't remember exactly how deep, but it's not very deep at all. I mean, you can sit down in it and it really just comes up above your hips. And it's got, the one that I went to had about 100 pounds, I think, of Epsom salt in the water. So it makes it so that you're very, very buoyant because of the density of the salt. And the tank was probably, I think, somewhere about 5.5 feet wide, maybe about 7.5 feet long. And you basically just lay down in this water, and because of all the salt, it allows you to float so that your face is exposed and just maybe the tips of your toes and the tips of your fingers or something. So it really makes you feel like you're just suspended in animation and completely weightless. Now the water is set to the same degree as your body temperature, so once you get in and you acclimate to the water and to the feel of the water, you really don't feel the water any longer unless you take your arm out of the water and move it around or something, but you really, it gives you this feeling of floating, and it's pretty remarkable. I was really blown away. I had heard about these quite a bit from some different podcasts that I listened to. My friend Mike Mahler from the Live Life Aggressively podcast has done the sensory deprivation tanks and had many favorable experiences with them, talks about them quite a bit. And I know Joe Rogan is a huge fan of them. I think he's even got one at his house now. But so I'd heard a lot about them, and it really appealed to me, especially from the standpoint that I do practice meditation with my practice of Taijiquan and qigong, the internal Chinese martial arts. Meditation is a big part of that, so I was really intrigued by the float tank and really wanting to give it a try. So one of my clients and friends, Kevin, had done this one down here in Atlanta. I guess it's the only location. They're called Float. I think it's, you either say it floats or Flow 2S. It's FLO number 2S. And I'll provide a link to their website for those of you who are here in the Atlanta area. If you want to check them out, I definitely recommend it. Now they're located down in the little 5 Points below one of my favorite places, the Star Bar, down across from the Vortex. And they've got 2 tanks, and you've got to schedule pretty well in advance to get a decent time. They do tend to book up. But Kevin got me a gift certificate, which is awesome. Thanks, Kevin. It's totally badass. And I finally used it last week. I scheduled an appointment and went down. It's pretty easy to do. Just scheduled the appointment on their app through my phone, and then went down, signed the waiver and everything online. And the director of the office, he shows you kind of the ins and outs. It's pretty simple. Basically, you just shower off. You've got some special earplugs that you put in, and then you get in. It was a 90-minute float. And then if you fall asleep, they wake you. They have music that starts playing to signify your 90 minutes is up. And you hear that, then you can kind of get up and take your time getting out, shower off again because you're covered in salt, and get dressed and head out. And basically what my experience was, you have a couple of options when you go in. You can have lights of it. In the one I was in, there was a small stream of really low blue light that illuminated the tank enough that you could see everything. Now it's not, they talk about claustrophobia, but it's more about because it's pitch black. If you turn the lights off, you can't see anything. There's no light coming in. So you'd be claustrophobic from the standpoint that you just feel like the place is closing in around you, I guess, because it's not a small tank. It's not like you're sliding into a tiny little pod or capsule. The one that I was in, I could actually stand up in, and like I said, it was about 5.5 feet wide, 7.5 feet long, plus it was tall enough for me to stand up in. So it wasn't like I was down in some sort of, tiny little pod or something like that where you might be claustrophobic. I can't speak to some of the other ones, but at least the ones that we used, they weren't very tight, close quarter at all. But it does, if you do choose to go without the lights, it is pitch black. You can't see anything. You don't know if your eyes are open or closed. So basically what I did is I just laid down and got used to the feeling, it was amazing. I mean, you literally felt like you were just suspended in midair. once the feeling of the water went away, you just had this weird feeling, this weird sensation of just floating. And I could see how some people, I've talked to some people who did get some motion sickness because they were disoriented from it. So one of the things too is the guy told me, some people are afraid to let their head lay back in the water, so they hold their head up thinking that their head's going to submerge underneath the water, and it won't. So one of the things too is you really need to let your neck relax, because if not, you're going to hold a lot of tension in your neck trying to keep your head up out of the water. So the key is when you get in, just lay back and let the water do its thing. For me, the water was up to about, it definitely covered my ears, but it was maybe about the side of my head, so definitely my chin, my mouth, my nose, and my eyes were all exposed, my forehead was all exposed, and never in danger at any time from submerging under the water. You would really have to try to get it down there, so there's nothing to worry about there. It's very safe. At no point did I feel like my head was going to tilt to the side as I was relaxing. I mean, the water really just held me. I had my arms out to the side, palms up, and it really just held me in that position. Occasionally I would drift into the side of the tank, but you just kind of float back out in the middle of the tank without any effort. So the feeling of weightlessness is really awesome. It was definitely something I'd never experienced before, and it was definitely cool. And like I said, I could see how some people might have some issues with motion sickness. But once you get in, I just used it as meditation. I just closed my eyes, focused on my breathing. You can really hear your breath, which is crazy. So it really allows you to anchor into your breathing and your total awareness in the present moment. And I think this is where some people might freak out. For me, I was just focused on breathing and just being present in that moment without any distractions. There's no phone, no music, no noise. You don't hear anything, you don't see anything, you don't feel anything. I mean, it's just a really crazy, unique feeling of just total focused awareness. And that's really one of the goals that we try to get through meditation, is not a zoning out, but a zoning in and just being absolutely present. So this type of experience forces you to be totally present. Now what happens is what some people like to refer to as our monkey mind, or our crazy thoughts that we're just entertaining and bombarding us all day. I can really see how if you don't have a background in meditation, or at least an understanding of the concept of trying to become present and becoming totally aware in the present moment, I can see how this could make some people stir crazy. Because your mind will start going nuts, and you'll start thinking, and the thoughts will speed up and go crazy, and you'll just go nuts and feeling like you have to do something. And that's really just a good representation of how ridiculously busy and distracted we are on a daily basis. You're always feeling like we got to do something or be engaged with something. You never take the time to sit, quiet down, and just be totally present and just be, for lack of a better term. So I can see how that might freak some people out. So if you're kind of like that and just want to experiment, you may want to find a shorter, I don't know what the durations are at the place that I went. I thought I saw that they only listed 90 and 90-minute and 2-hour floats. I could be wrong about that, but I could see how maybe just doing a 30-minute float, or even if you can handle a 60-minute float, might be enough for somebody for the first time, especially if you do not have a background in some sort of meditative practice. It could be better to ease into this that way, so that the experience is a little bit more favorable for you. Because I definitely have talked to some people that didn't have a good experience with the sensory deprivation tank. And when you think about it, it really has a lot to do with, some people just don't want to be alone in their head. They don't want to look at themselves and have these periods of introspection that meditation allows, where you can really just be with yourself, to be with your thoughts, to learn how to detach from those thoughts that come to you, and not get hung up on them, and not stressed out from what happened yesterday or last week, and not freaking out or worrying about what you got to do tomorrow or what's coming down the road. So I think some people really they don't want to take that time to just be with themselves and focus on themselves like that. So I can see how it could be a bit stressful if you're not used to that. But all in all, I gotta say, my experience, I loved it. It was definitely something I would do on a regular basis, particularly if the place was a little bit closer where I'm at. It's just hard to get to because it is downtown and so far away from where I'm at on the north side. But it's definitely something that I would do on a fairly regular basis, and something that I will do if I can, or make the time to get down there. And it's definitely something, if you practice meditation, or if you're involved in practices like yoga or qigong or the internal martial arts, you will probably have a really good experience doing one of these sensory deprivation tanks. So anyway, they're called sensory deprivation tanks or float tanks. I definitely recommend checking it out if you can. If you've got one near you, schedule an appointment. If you're not involved in some sort of meditation practice, I would definitely recommend maybe a shorter float for your first time. You can also have lights on in there, enough to see so you don't become too disoriented. I chose to go completely lights off. I wanted to have the full experience with complete sensory deprivation, and it was truly remarkable. I'm really thankful that I got to do it. I'm thankful to my friend Kevin for hooking me up with the gift certificate. It was awesome and very much appreciated. And the other thing is too, because you're soaking in all that Epsom salt, the magnesium stuff, you feel very relaxed when you get out. I mean, your muscles are just, it's like taking a salt bath, your muscles are very relaxed. I just felt very kind of loose and at ease and just really, really good and just calm when I got out of the tank. Now it is, especially because I did a 90-minute float, it is a bit disorienting when you turn the lights on and you see, the guy told me to make sure you sit for a minute or two because you might be a little, kind of have a drunk feeling, from the float, and I did. My head was a little groggy when I sat up, and it was a little disorienting, but it only took about a half minute or a minute of just kind of breathing to get my bearings, and then I was able to stand up and shower, and I was fine getting out of there. But I felt totally relaxed, totally calm, totally at ease, and it was really definitely one of the best experiences I've had in a long time, and the best I've felt in a long time. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it. It's definitely something I would recommend looking into. So hopefully you can find a place near you, or if you're traveling and there's one nearby a location you're going to be, definitely make the time to at least consider it. But I definitely recommend checking it out if it's something that you're interested in or even entertaining to the slightest degree. So that was my experience with the sensory deprivation tank or the float tank. I just used it as meditation, and it was awesome. So I'm all for it, definitely 2 thumbs up. So if you're interested, like I said, definitely check it out. I'll put a link to the place that I went here in Atlanta down in the notes below. And if you've got any questions or there's something that you want to know about the sensory deprivation tank or the float tank, I'm not a pro. I've only done it one time and know what I've heard on the various podcast interviews that I've listened to about it. But if you've got any questions about my experience, make sure you leave them in the comments below. And if you've got any suggestions or ideas for future show topics, leave those in the comments below too. And until next time, stay strong and stay healthy.